So welcome back, children, and as we discussed, we stopped with language playing a pivotal role in, or language and its relation with power as being intimate, as noted by the famous critic Michel Foucault. So let's begin our today's lessons. So I would just take a quick recap of where we stopped so that you will have an understanding. The relation, as we spoke last time, the relation between knowledge and power has been very intimate. So what does it mean, power being very intimate? Now, I even gave you the example from the history of India. See, in the beginning, we had Sanskrit. Sanskrit was the official language or the powerful language of India. And when the Muslims came, Sanskrit was replaced by Persian, right? And then it got intermingled. Sanskrit and Persian got intermingled, and we have various other languages like Hindi, Urdu and all coming up later on. So this is how the languages were formed. Now if you look at the power factor, whoever is in power, whichever group is in power, they try to pose their language as prime language or as the official language of the country that they govern. That was the same case with the English as well. So in ancient times, as we discussed earlier, the Celts and the Gaels, they invaded they came and settled in Britain, and their language was Celtic and Gaelic. Soon the Romans come, Latin was introduced, Christianity was introduced, and therefore a lot of Latin words got mingled with the language that was already there. So it gets accumulated. So Latin was introduced, Christianity came. I also told you that many of the alphabets, not many of the alphabets, the English alphabets as such is taken from the Latin language, and we have not just English, French, English, German, all these people adopted Latin alphabet. So ultimately, every language leaves an impact on the speech, culture, on their lives, and it gets accumulating. That's where we stopped in the last class. So let's begin today's class. And Latin, as we spoke, Latin replaced Gaelic and Celtic language, and this continued for 450 years. It was in that year that the island was again attacked by whom? By the Germanic tribes, the Angles, the Saxons and the Jutes, which came, as we said earlier in the earlier video, they came from Germany, or the places, region near Germany. Germany, in fact, there was no nation. Germany as a nation was not developed, or was not there at that time. It was somewhat near to the southeast of Russia. Okay, so that is Germany, the present day Germany, that is. So these people, they came to British Islands in order to fight the Picts and the Scots, and they were invited by whom? Invited by the Celts. So they came, and finally what happened to the Celts? They were dislodged by these Anglo-Saxons, and these Anglo-Saxons, the invited group, they came, they stayed, and they brought their own language, their dialects of German. So the Angles, for example, had their own dialect, the Saxons had their own, and the Jutes their own. So different dialects of German language was introduced in the British island. Now it was these dialects that which or because they were in power, these dialects slowly became the official language. And so, as I told you earlier, whoever rules will impose their language, and their language becomes, or they will impose their power, and therefore their language becomes the official language. Thus the Angles becoming more powerful, or being more powerful, English became the official language of the people, and it became spoken by the ruling class. Now however, the shift from Middle English, or from the Old English to the Middle English, would take place only later on. English gets the characteristics of the languages of the land. That is, the British island was earlier exposed to several languages. You have the Celtic language, you have the languages brought in by the Romans, you have the languages brought in by or the various dialects brought in by the Anglo-Saxons. So all these actually kept accumulating in our English language as such. Okay, so the Celtic however was a different language. It is the Angles who introduced English language, but even then there was a merge of all these languages in the English language. Now that all we discussed earlier. So the ruling class language will become the official language. Like the example for India, the Persian language, which continued, Sanskrit first, and then comes the Persian language, which lasted for a while. And when the British came, English became the official language of India till it gained freedom. And now all these languages left behind kept accumulating, and it had a great impact on the local languages of the people. India has more than, say, 22 languages, around 26 languages, whereas the whole of Europe, if you take the whole of Europe, Europe has only 13 languages. And all these 26 languages of our country at one time, that is the ancient time, were the dialects of Sanskrit. But then later they developed into their own language, because every group of people is aspirant to develop its own language, its own spoken language, and its own literature, and so on. So they make it an official language of the state. So it all started with Sanskrit. Various dialects of Sanskrit became various languages of India. So as it gained its own freedom, as new states kept emerging, there the power factor again played. Whoever ruled that state, that the majority of the ruling class, whoever spoke that particular dialect, that dialect later on, of course, it diverged into a language, and that later on became the language of that particular state. For example, Kerala, our own Kerala, was a part of Madras in the past, right? Again, what we have, the Dravidian language, all are a part and parcel of Sanskrit only. So from Tamil, when we became a separate, or when we slowly started diverging, and from the language, the earlier language, when slowly Malayalam started forming and we had our own state, our state's official language became Malayalam, because the majority of the people in Kerala speak Malayalam, and the ruling class, that is the one who is in power. So our state, the Malayalam became, or the land where people spoke, Kerala became the land where people spoke Malayalam. Malayalam becomes the official language because it imposes power. So power and language are intimate. That's how it is about almost all over our all the states of our country. So likewise, again, it is from Sanskrit and the intermingling of Persian and various other languages that these languages as such developed. There were various a variety of variants of one language which slowly started developing and formed different languages. So here also it is the same. Similarly in Europe too, the Celtic, Gaelic, all from Celtic to Gaelic to English, or some sort of English, that is, we cannot call it completely the English that we speak of today, some sort of English, a mixture of dialect of the Angles and the Saxons and the Jutes all put together, and with the motherly influence of Latin was born this language, that is English. So it took time for English language to mature into a language which we can relate with in our modern times, which you and I can understand. So it took its evolvement into a language as we know of in the 14th century only, not in the Old English period. It had to wait a long time to mature into a modern or a language that was comprehensible. So in the age of Chaucer, which we will be dealing with very soon, when language became modern English, when it took its shape and became the formal language to be written, to be read, to be introduced in England during the Renaissance. Now before the Renaissance, there were only dialects. Okay, it was with the coming of the Renaissance that English language as such was formed. So like Chaucer, his dialect was Midland dialect. Even within London, there are many dialects spoken in different parts of the city. So it were the dialects of English that was spoken, and no official language, there was no official language in England till the 14th century. They were all various dialects of English that was spoken. So it was in the 14th century that English matured into the formal language to be read and to be written. Till then we had the Old English. We did discuss of the Old English and how it was. It was totally different, a new type of language. It was not at all comprehensible. You couldn't understand a word of it. In fact, it would look totally different to us. Okay, so it was only in the 14th century that English became a comprehensible language. Now we shall move on to a few Old English works. The oldest text in Old English period is probably Beowulf, and as in other culture, in English literature also, the earliest form of literature was predominantly oral. It was not written down. The bards are the people who sing, or now the present day meaning would be a poet. They were the ones who would sing or orally, sing songs or stories about the great warriors or past. They would recite great stories in public places, and many centuries later only this Beowulf was even written down. So Beowulf, the oldest text or the oldest literature, surviving literature, was perhaps oral, and it was written down only later, say in the 7th century or so. So this was an oral tradition which was later written down. It was King Alfred, you have studied about him, King Alfred the Great, who actually stopped the Vikings, who who fought the Vikings, and he was very powerful. King Alfred greatly contributed to the growth of written literature. He promoted literature a lot. All oral literature, or even the written ones in Anglican, Kentish dialects, were all translated by him and to West Saxon dialect, and they are still preserved even to this very day. Now, the earliest text, that is Beowulf, which I told you was in the oral tradition and it was later written down, is anonymous. We do not know who wrote this story in verse. It is in the poetic form. So the Old English, this Old English poem, it consists of around more than 3,000 lines, around 3,182 lines, and it is alliterative in nature. And since we do not know who the poet is, the scholars call it name the poet as Beowulf, a poet. So the story is like this. It is set in Scandinavia. And Beowulf is a hero of the Geats, and he has come to help Hrothgar, and he has come to help Hrothgar, the king of Danes, who is under the attack of a monster known as Grendel. After Beowulf slays him, Grendel's mother attacks, but again is defeated by Beowulf, and later Beowulf becomes the great king of Geats. He rules that country he rules Geats for 50 years, but then there is an attack from a dragon, and Beowulf is mortally wounded in the fight or in the battle, and both dies. And Beowulf's body is later cremated, and they erect a tower in his name. Okay, so this poem survives even today. It is in single piece, and it is known as Novel Codex. There's only one piece of this manuscript, and it is still preserved today, known as Novel Codex, and it is does not have any title. It is called Beowulf because we do not know who wrote this poem, and the scholar's name has named this poem after the protagonist Beowulf, who is the leading character or the protagonist of the poem. Now, other examples of earlier poems would be Widsith, Dior's Lament, Wanderer, Seafarer. They are all again anonymous poems. Wanderer and Seafarer has a theme of travel, because these Europeans, these people, especially the English people, they loved the ocean, they loved to travel. And all their poems were alliterative in nature. Their themes were mostly about gloom, about death, about religion, etc. Since Christianity played a pivotal role, several religious poems were written during this time. Now, you have few people whom we know of, some poems are not anonymous, and those are the Caedmon's hymns. Okay, and the legend, there is a legend also behind him. It is said so that Caedmon or Cadmon, however you pronounce it, was a layman an ordinary man, and he was living in the abbey. He had no qualities, or he had no talents of music, or he was just an ordinary person. And one day he had a divine inspiration, and he was able to compose poems of fine quality. So only few of his poems remain, and he's more of a legendary character who lived in the 7th century. Another manuscript that still remains with a signature is that of Cynewulf. Cynewulf, who lived sometime in the 9th century. Again, exact dates are not known. Now, Cynewulf had written Fates of Apostles, Juliana, Christ Second, Dream of Rood, and Battle of Maldon are all they are also considered written by him. Dream of Rood and Battle of Maldon is also considered written by him, but modern critics doubts the authenticity of they doubt whether it was really written by Cynewulf. They feel that Dream of Rood and Battle of Maldon were written by some other poet. Then that's it for the Old English poetry. We now come to Old English prose. King Alfred did great service to the nation in two ways. One, it was he who controlled and established peace with the Vikings. We studied that earlier. Then he promoted literature. He himself wrote, translated different works. Many of the Old English literature, even those written in other dialects, were made available to the world and is still surviving only because of King Alfred. He commissioned the writing of Anglo-Saxon chronicles. Now this is very important, which is a long history of England, and it kept on being updated even after his date. It kept on being updated till the 12th century, that is 1154. This huge manuscript is still preserved, and this is written in Anglo-Saxon English. He also translated Pope Gregory's Pastoral Care. Then we have Bede, Venerable Bede, who wrote most of the ecclesiastical history of English people. Though it is a religious work, we get to know that period's historical background through this work written by Bede. Especially the coming of the arrival of the Romans and all, we get to understand it from this work written by Bede. So that's it for the Old English period. We have covered we studied or we discussed on the historical background of the Old English period, the Anglo-Saxon period. We also understood, we had a analytical view of how language plays a pivotal role with power, and how our English is an accumulation, or in fact a merge of several dialects, several languages that was introduced in the country by the invaders or by the ones who were in power, and how we got this language, or how it developed into a modern language. We are yet to learn, we are yet to study. We also looked into the Old English poetry, or the Old English works, the Old English poetry, Old English prose, though some of which are anonymous and are written some in Scandinavian, some in Anglo-Saxon. King Alfred, we also discussed on King Alfred, whose contribution to literature was immense, and that we also learnt about Bede. From Bede we get a lot of information of the historical settings or the historical aspects of that period. Though it is a religious work, we get to understand various people who came and who stayed. Yes, so that's about it for Old English. You have to remember a few names. One is Beowulf, that is an anonymous poem. I told you the story of the poem. It is mostly written, or the theme is gloom and death, and also religious poems. It's also about travel. Yes, you have the wanderer, the seafarer, and then you also have Caedmon. You also have Cynewulf, who wrote poems, and Caedmon and Cynewulf are the ones perhaps who wrote their names on the work that they wrote, and therefore we know that they existed. By Beowulf, on the other hand, is an anonymous poem. Then when it comes to the Old English prose, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles is of very great importance. So with that, we shall end the Old English period and move on to the Middle English period. So let's begin with the Middle English period. The Middle English period roughly spans from 10th century AD to 15th century, or say 1066. We'll get to the political background after we have we'll just have an understanding of the language again, the language part, and then we will move to the political background of the period. All right. So during this period, that is, England was under the rule of the Normans. The Normans came, they conquered. The Anglo-Saxons were defeated. King Harold II was defeated, and William the First, William the First, or King William the First, King William, he becomes the William the Conqueror. He was William the Conqueror, called William the Conqueror. He becomes King William, and he starts his rule in England. So the Norman conquest begins in 1066, and English was now, let's see what happened to the language. As we discussed earlier, whoever is in power, they will pose their language as more powerful. The Normans, they spoke French, and therefore French language became powerful language because that was the language of the ruling class, and English was now reduced to the language of the subjects, the one who was governed or the one who was ruled, the language spoken by the ones who were ruled upon. The official language of this period therefore became French. Thus the power was held by the Normans, and French became a powerful language. It was the language spoken by the elite, the language of the rulers, the language of the aristocrats, the language of the upper strata, the language that was spoken by even the subjects who supported the king, either for money or for personal favor. Those section of the subjects also spoke French, that is the upper strata of the society, whereas English was spoken by the common man, the general public. See, the Middle English period cannot be constructed into a single seamless continuum. It needs to be divided into two parts, that is the time before Chaucer and the time after Chaucer. So the beginning of Middle English period, again, we cannot give the exact dates because we cannot say when the Old English period ended. That exact date cannot be given. For political convenience, it's easier to note that 1066 as the year of Norman conquest as the beginning of the Middle English period. So politically, what happened was this Anglo-Saxon dominance or power came to an end, and there were a lot of other changes also that happened in the country at that time. So it is also to be noted that slowly this English language, with the coming of the Normans, though it faded for some time, though it was suppressed and subjugated, it became the language spoken only by the common class people or the common class. It got subjugated or it got suppressed only for some time. It was this period, see, they have already become civilized people. Earlier they were tribes, warriors, but now with the coming of Christianity, with the coming of the Romans, with the coming of the Anglo-Saxons and new culture, new traditions, they started becoming more civilized people. And therefore, it is to be noted that these English people started to have an identity of their own. They tried to resist the Normans, the power of the Normans in many ways, but it did not happen completely. They could not completely resist them. They were far more powerful. They continued to rule and they continued to govern, but they resisted these. They tried to resist the power of the Normans, and slowly. You can say that when you look at the language part, language, that is English language, was slowly evolving. It started losing its Germanic influences, the inflections and all, where it started shedding its inflections, and slowly English was, taking form. So this Norman conquest, though it was brutal, though it was hostile, it did our English a good lot of favor. English was taking shape. English was slowly forming into what we call our modern language, but it didn't happen completely. Slowly, it is to take place slowly, and with Chaucer begins our modern English. So you see that the Middle English was neither like the Old English, nor did it resemble the modern English that we speak today. It was different. It was a blend of Old English, that is the Norman English, and the Old English and the Norman English, the blend of Old and English and the Norman English. Okay, so you can call it an in-between language. All right, which one? Middle English. Old English, we can't understand anything. It is totally a different language to us. It looks like a different language to us. But with the coming of the Normans, it is a blend of Norman English, okay, and the Old English. Now we'll look into what this Norman English is as we move on. Okay, so the historians call it an in-between language. But English during this time, if you look at the Old English, was far more comprehensible, and the literature of that time also can be identified much easier. We can understand it much easier than the Old English texts like Beowulf and the rest of the ones that we discussed earlier. The Middle English was far more easier to understand. It did not completely evolve into the modern English that we speak of today, but it was far comprehensible. Okay, so before now there are many of you who would be thinking, why on earth do you have to go so deep into something that is not given in detail in the textbook? Well, the reason is many of you did express your desire to join IFLU, to join Kerala University, Madras University. Yes, Anjana desires to go to IFLU. Some of you spoke of Kerala University and also of Madras University. Well, for this detailed analysis will definitely help you to pass your entrance tests for your post-graduation, wherever you're looking. If you're, I don't know if you would be able to go to the northern parts right now because of the outbreak of this pandemic. I would definitely suggest that you try somewhere here, even our Calicut University. You can try these places, the good colleges here nearby, or even the colleges in the southern parts, or try to stick to places where you are safe rather than going to far off places. That's one thing that I want to tell you, especially in this terrible time of pandemic. We do not know how far this is going to take, how far it would take for India to recover from this, how long it would take for India to recover from this pandemic. So I suggest that you try places or colleges nearby, that is for your next year, that is your PG. So right now it is a time, this lockdown is also a time where you can, think about your future, and it gives you ample lot of time. After this you are free, you just have 3 periods, right from morning to 12:30, right, 9:30 to 12:30. All you have to do is sit, watch the video and then answer the questions, and after that you're free. And so you can do a little bit of research, you can read a lot and get ready for your, think about your future, because you are in the final year. All right, yes, so much of the sermon that ends. Yes, come back. So the work that we discussed before Chaucer's period, I told you we will divide this session into 2. One Middle English session itself, one before Chaucer and the one after Chaucer. So the work that we are to discuss before Chaucer are not of supreme importance in terms of literary analysis and literary criticism, but they have historical kind of interest in situating the events that led to Chaucer as the most important literary figure. So let us have a quick glimpse of the major milestones of Middle English period during this time. If you look at the milestones of Middle English time, it would be 1066 is the year of Norman conquest. By 1215 we have a politically defining moment, which is the Magna Carta, which we shall discuss shortly. And then by 1250, I want you to take this down, 1066 Norman conquest, 1215 the signing or drafting and signing of agreement of the Magna Carta, and then 1250 French begins to lose its prominence due to several political and socio-political events. Between 1337 and 1453 we have the 100 Years' War. In 1362 is a very prominent period. English language acquires. It is the year of the Statute of Pleading, which ordered henceforth all proceedings in law courts should be in English instead of French. So 1362 is a very, very important period or a year in terms of English language, because English language comes into prominence. It acquires its power. The one that was debased by the Normans and the French language now gets back its power. This period is also characterized by the Black Death, the bubonic plague, which affected not just Britain but also many parts of Europe, just like we have the pandemic right now. This is also an era which saw the emergence of the middle class to be a very prominent figure. It is also important to note that even Europe was undergoing radical changes during this time. This was also the time of Holy Crusades. We discussed Holy Crusades as well, did we? I don't remember. Okay, but England's participation in Holy Crusades. What is Holy Crusades? Crusades where the Pope orders all the European nations to Christianize, or the ones who were already Christianized to go to farther places in the East to Christianize them. So it was a holy war. It was violent and it was brutal also, and that shows the ironical side, and that in fact was also one reason that led to the Renaissance. People started thinking, why, when religion speaks of peace, a religion that speaks of peace eventually let loose or unleashes violence. So people started thinking more in terms of humanity. So this, however, it did England's participation in this Holy Crusades were minimal. However, it did affect the literature of the period, since the men went on war. It was all about literature, love or romance, the lover yearning for her beloved, and who has gone to fight the war. She does not know whether he would return or not, and all this affected the literature of the period. So it was all about love, romance, chivalry, knighthood. Yes, England also started to outgrow the hostility between the native population and the invaders who were native French. In the beginning, when they came, they were rivals. They hated one another, but slowly they were okay. They started mingling with each other, and that the English people of England starts to outgrow the hostility between the native population and the invaders, that is the French Normans. And they understood that it's of no use fighting among themselves, and they understood that it is about consolidating themselves as a nation and as a single linguistic unit. Instead of fighting, they should be doing something to make them unified, to unify them and consolidating themselves into one nation and into having one language or a single linguistic unit. Now let's look at what Magna Carta is. Well, Magna Carta is one of the most important political event which tells us how England began to shape itself as a nation, and also how the rights of the Englishmen was written down. And that is how slowly English is taking shape. England is becoming a nation, and it is becoming a powerful nation. Okay, so Magna Carta, or the Great Charter of Liberties, it was signed. I told you there was a fight between the barons and King John, who was very popular, the Norman king. So in order to bring peace between the barons and King John, the Magna Carta was written. Magna Carta was drafted by the Archbishop of Canterbury, and it was signed by, or agreed and signed upon by King John. So it is considered as a political negotiation. It also had a lot of implications for the commoners, because it had the protection of the church rights. It involved the protection of the barons from illegal imprisonments and so on and so forth. Now these barons, the king, what he did was, if he found that the barons were going against him, or if the barons were becoming more powerful, the king could imprison them without any evidence at all. So this ensured that the king could not act according to his whims and fancies, but he must ensure that the subjects are ruled upon properly, and their rights are also maintained, or their rights are also to be taken into account. So Magna Carta is an important political event that led to the shaping of the political life of England, and we also see that the literature of the period also had new freedom. It had a new secular ambulance. So Magna Carta went on being renewed by the later monarchs who came after King John, and this ensured safety of the people, the commoners, and England was in fact taking shape. As a nation, England was taking shape. So in the next, that's it for today. We shall move on to the literary works in the next upcoming videos. We shall also try to look into the language part. We have covered the language part. We didn't completely come into the do the language part, but I did tell you the origin of English language, how it originated from Old English. It started shedding its Germanic influences, its inflections, and it started to take shape. It had the accumulation of all the languages that was brought to this island. It also had a motherly touch of Latin, and slowly there were English language was taking shape, and with the signing of the Magna Carta, which ensured freedom, a lot of freedom and rights to the Englishmen, England was becoming powerful, started to become a powerful nation. Very soon we'll see how the modern English period, or by the time of Chaucer, how it evolved into a more comprehensible English. But that and all in the later videos. And thank you, and keep home, stay home, and stay safe, because you heard in the news the problem is becoming worse and worse. So വീട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് ഇറങ്ങണ്ട, വീട്ടിലിരിക്കുക, സേഫായിട്ടിരിക്കുക, ഓൺലൈൻ ക്ലാസ്സസ് ഒക്കെ നോക്കുക. അതേപോലെ തന്നെ പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യം, ഫ്യൂച്ചറിനെ പറ്റിയിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഒക്കെ ഒന്ന് ശ്രദ്ധിക്കുക. പോസ്റ്റ് ഗ്രാജുവേഷൻ പോകുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളും ഏതെടുക്കണം, എടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അതിനെ പറ്റിയിട്ട് കുറച്ച് കൂടുതലായിട്ട് ബുക്കുകൾ വായിക്കുക, റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുക. അത് പഠിച്ചിട്ടുള്ള ആൾക്കാരുടെ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഏതാണോ, ചിലർ MBAക്ക് പോകുന്നു എന്ന് പറയുന്നു, ചിലർ സിനിമാറ്റോഗ്രാഫിക്കാണ് പോകുന്നതെന്ന് പറയുന്നു, ചിലർ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് ലിറ്ററേച്ചറിന് തന്നെ പോകുന്നു. അതും ഏതെടുക്കണം, എങ്ങനെ, ഏത് കോളേജിൽ പോകണം, ഏത് യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി എടുക്കണം എന്നുള്ളതൊക്കെ കാര്യങ്ങളൊന്നും ഈ സമയത്തൊക്കെ ഒന്ന് ചിന്തിക്കാം അല്ലേ. വെറുതെ ഇരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു സമയമല്ലേ, എസ്പെഷ്യലി. അതേപോലെ തന്നെ പ്രോജക്റ്റിനെ പറ്റിയിട്ട് അത് ഞാൻ പറയാൻ വിട്ടുപോയി. പ്രോജക്റ്റിൻ്റെ കാര്യം, I want all of you to start reading your book. Make sure you contact your guides and speak to them. And also you have to think about the literary tool that you're going to use. You have to keep writing, make a note of all those things that you have noted down, how the tool would apply to the book that you have taken. And if you have any doubts, you can call me. Please make sure that you speak to your guides and start, researching. All right. Okay. Thank you and have a nice day.